All right, Bride of Monster Kid Radio listeners, I told you that we'd be going to Phoenix Fan Fusion this weekend, and that is where we are right now. We're kind of hanging out in a hallway outside of a ballroom where they're doing a Q&A with some Star Trek folk. But you know what? As much fun as I would love to have listening to people talk Star Trek, I have even more fun talking about classic monster movies with you. So that's what we're doing on this week's episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio, in addition to a movie that we're going to talk about later with my lovely bride, Beth, who is here. How's the convention going so far for you?
Oh, it's amazing. In fact, I've been having so much fun that I'm now using both crutches because my legs are not keeping up with the fun that the rest of me is having quite as much. But no, it's been really great. There's so many cool vendors and independent artists and things. So many cool panels. Our Lego build has really gone over really, really well, and it's really fun to see all the families looking at it and the young people, even in their 20s and 30s, getting excited about getting back into Lego again and doing stuff. So it's been an amazing weekend. I've never been to a convention this large before, and I will definitely be back.
Speaking of the Lego build, I don't know if you've seen this, but I have launched a new Instagram page, the Brick Lagoon. Lagoon spelled Legoon. And you will see pictures from Fan Fusion and our Lego build over there, so make sure you check that out. Now, we're not alone. Somebody drove, 6.5 hours?
6.5 hours. I took the left turn at Albuquerque, drove straight west through the Painted Desert, and came to Phoenix. This is BadShark Blackhand, the necromancer of New Mexico, and I am happy to be on Bride of Monster Kid Radio.
How's the con going for you so far?
Oh, this has been a blast. I am also a huge Lego aficionado, have been since the early 80s as a kid, and I've really been enjoying seeing the families all dressed up in related superhero or video game or other Minecraft, other costumes. It really doesn't matter. It's just fun to see families out together and, dressing up and enjoying the convention together.
In fact, when we met you yesterday, you were dressed up. I don't have the confidence or don't really know what I would dress up as because I'm not allowed to shave the beard, according to my wife here, so it kind of limits what I can do. But
Wait. You are allowed to do whatever you want. It's your body. You just can't sleep in our bed until the beard grows back.
So like I said, I'm not allowed to shave the beard. So it limits what I can do. Although I would love to do Jack of Hearts someday because that's my boy. Jack of Hearts is the man.
There's a multiverse. He can have a beard in one.
Yeah, I don't know if that counts. I don't know. The sparkle beard? No, Jack of Hearts does not have a sparkled beard. How dare you? You leave that guy with the heart over the one eye alone. He doesn't have a sparkle.
But then you'd have to dye half the beard a different color and see. Yeah. So it's a little bit of that differential effect.
They have one-off, pomade you can put in that washes out.
I'll consider it. But, we're not talking comic books. We're not talking Lego as much as I would love to talk about both. And I can talk about both.
What are we talking about then?
Well, we haven't done this in a long time. And when we ran into Phil, BadShark Blackhand, we talked about, did I get that right? Is it BadShark or Black Shark?
No, it is BadShark Blackhand.
I know I always mix it up and I always have to double check and edit out my mistakes on the show.
That's okay. I got the nickname from the time I tried to ride a shark. I got onto the shark just fine. I rode it, but getting it to stop was really a hard thing. So, whoa, stop, BadShark, BadShark. And that name kind of sticks with you.
All right, BadShark. I think I could get away with riding a shark once.
It's the dismount you really have to watch.
Right.
Like with many things.
I can fly just fine. It's just landing. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So he comes up to me and he's like, I would love to do the Classic 5 if you want to record. And I haven't done the Classic 5 in forever. So much so that Beth even was like, what's the Classic 5? She didn't even remember because we haven't done it in so long. All the Classic 5 cards are in storage right now, hanging out in the hot Arizona sun.
Those I remember.
What's that?
Those I remember packing multiple times and moving multiple times.
See, I have not bought a set because I don't have anyone really to play with who's into classic monster movies except for my wife, and she wouldn't have the background knowledge to be able to play the Classic 5 because I know you can buy them online still, right?
Yes. And eventually I'm going to make a new set of them. For those of you who don't know, the Classy 5 is a card game that we used to play on the podcast all the time. It's a deck of cards. Each card has a this or that, which movie do you prefer style question. There are no wrong answers. It's just a way to get monster kids talking about their favorite subject, monster movies, which really you get a couple monster kids together. You don't need that help, but it's a fun icebreaker nonetheless. Now, I have been thinking about some of the questions from the deck. I will be doing a new one down the line, so there might be a question or two that people have never heard before. We'll see. But are you ready to play around?
That would be exciting to have prototype questions live and on the air.
So some of these may come from before. Some of them may be new. I don't remember. I haven't reviewed the file. But what's that, Beth?
You know, I know you mentioned that you would like to play with your partner. I think a lot of people feel that way, but usually in a couple, one person's got more of that knowledge than the other. Maybe we need an expansion deck that's simpler questions for the newbie monster kid, the monster baby, if you will. And then, no, I don't like that at all. The new monster kid. Anyway, so that, like, when my kids were little, when the girls were little, we would play Trivial Pursuit, but they got to pick questions from the kids box and we had to pick questions from the grown-up box. So, you know, if we had like an expansion pack that was for newbie monster kids, you could go with the hard questions, she could go with the newbie questions, and then she would learn, and as she went, then she could transfer over. So I don't know, what do you think?
You know, I've been focusing so much on trying to do like a black label, like the really in-depth, deep cut stuff. But maybe that's what I need to do.
Maybe I'll help with that end of it.
Okay.
Simpler it.
Fair enough.
You could call it the Monster Hatchling.
Oh,
Even better.
Hatchlings, yes.
Even better. All right. So question number 1. What is your favorite classic monster movie monster?
Oh, that's a very hard one to answer because I love Karloff as Frankenstein. Absolutely. But, that was groundbreaking makeup. Dracula is a signature look that Bela Lugosi created. But for sheer technical innovation, adaptability, and the fact that they used 2 different suits on 2 different actors, I have to go with the creature from the Black Lagoon. Especially since there was no air system in it. It was just that, I don't remember the name of the swimmer actor, but he was just brilliant in that suit.
Lungs.
Rico Browning.
Browning.
Yeah, who we lost last year or the year before. Yeah, so Rico Browning. So yeah, so now you're my favorite because you mentioned the Go Man. But follow-up question, this is not part of the Classic 5. If this convention was suddenly swarmed or maybe swamped with a bunch of Gillmen, what would you do?
Communicate. I actually think the Gillman is actually one of the more intelligent monsters. And as I know this point's come up on your show before, in the original movie, they're invading his Black Lagoon. In the second movie, they made a theme park attraction out of him. They kidnapped him, absolutely. And in the third one, they burned his skin off. So, I think they would be reasonable, especially if we could just herd them back to the water, which this is Phoenix, Arizona. It's a long way. We'd have to find a pool, but we could make do. I think we could communicate with the Gillman.
Maybe we could temporarily hand over the water park that's in Northwest Phoenix to them, because it's getting too hot. People really shouldn't be out in the sun that much anyway, and they could just hang there for a while we communicate, but not in an imprisoned way, in a like free and able to have the water they need, and also a little fun, because it'll show them that we can have fun, and then they'll feel like, oh, not everyone is a horrible human.
And you could also, the hot dog dealers, especially if anybody who's got like fish and chips.
Yep.
They might love the fish and chips. I don't know.
Maybe a little calamari at the nice
little
restaurant.
calamari, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Question number 2. What is your favorite black and white zombie movie?
Okay. Little known fact, I am not a big fan of the zombie.
Okay.
George Romero, Night of the Living Dead, was really the last of the good zombie movies, in my opinion. I Again, it was covered, I think, fairly recently, but it was, I Walked with a Zombie. I had never seen that before growing up, and so I looked that up. It was a really grainy, was it YouTube or was it on Roku? I may have paid for it on Roku or through Amazon Prime. I don't remember which, but I've been kind of on movies I never saw back in the day. So I saw a lot of the Hammer ones with my dad when they were on TV late night. I saw the classic ones at like our library and after school. I was telling you I saw the Godzilla movies because they would show those after school. But I Walked with a Zombie was not one that I saw even in college. So I looked that up, and that one was just really, really interesting. I saw it kind of late at night, so I don't remember the plot well. But it was so grounded.
And zombies? Probably.
It was so grounded in the voodoo culture. And I don't like the zombie plague type movies. I like my zombies to be magical. It comes from my D&D upbringing. You know, I played a lot of D&D. So if there's zombies around, I want a cleric who can bash them or something like that. Yeah.
I can get into that. I actually like that because I also feel like, unfortunately, the zombie plague is just evidence of how stupid humanity as a group are. Unfortunately, for those of us who aren't stupid, we're going to get killed by the people who are. But if it's not that, if it's either magical or a scientific thing where, you know, they're individually being created. Magic is just science we don't understand yet. So, science, magic, whatever. It's magic. So, it's magic. Then, yeah, that's a lot better. I like those zombies a lot better. And it gives you more of an ability to tweak little things about them, too, because you can tailor the magic to the situation.
The last thing I want to say, too, is that one had such a great plot and story.
Yes.
And that's what really made it for me, is it was a great plot, a great story. So that's my favorite black and white zombie movie.
I think it's one that I'd like to show Beth because it's basically Jane Eyre with zombies on it. So I think you would.
Oh, I love when there's a new Jane Eyre in the offing.
In the offing. Cute. Okay. All right. So one of the icons of classic horror is Lon Chaney Jr. We know him as the Wolfman. He did a turn as Frankenstein's monster. He did play the son of Dracula. What other monster would you like to see him tackle? I mean, he did the Mummy, too.
He did do the Mummy. I think he would be a great Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Because in the Wolfman movies, he was so sympathetic. And I know some people discount Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, but that's the first time I ever saw.
Not here. We love that one.
So do I. I saw that at like 5, and I've seen it many, many times. I own it. And where I was going with this is I felt such sympathy and the dread that Lon Chaney Jr. emoted in that movie, I think was just great. I've seen him in Of Mice and Men, so we know he can act, and I think he could do the transformation from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde, kind of like Spencer Tracy did, where you change the lighting a little bit, you let him act, and then maybe
It's mostly their face.
Yeah, it's mostly the face.
Let them act.
I think he could act that so much.
Let them act.
Monstrous that way. Yeah. And she just body posture too, you know. So that's, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
He was a very physical actor, and I'm sure some of it had to do with his upbringing, with Lon Chaney Sr. being a very physical actor as well. So that's not where I thought anybody would go, but now I can't think of anything other than that as the quote-unquote right answer. So you mentioned watching Hammer films growing up. What is your favorite Hammer series, the Frankenstein or the Dracula films?
I gotta go with the Hammer Dracula, because I love Christopher Lee, and of course Peter Cushing's brilliant. And I think that's partly because I didn't see the Hammer Dracula movies growing up much, or I don't remember them as specific movies. I think they all got jumbled together in my head until I saw them later. Whereas I know I saw most of the Hammer Frankensteins with my dad, starting with Frankenstein Created Woman.
And brought that up yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, that was the first one. And, Dad was explaining it to me because I was like maybe 10, 11 at that age. And so I wasn't getting all of it, but he'd seen it and he liked all of them. They were on TV, so they were, all the naughty parts were cut out. But, that's okay.
They really did back in the day, too. They cut anything out. It was nearly Kuwait level of editing.
And like I said, so it's been a while since I've gone back to see the Hammer Frankenstein movies. And again, I would watch those for the Peter Cushing. I think the Hammer Frankenstein monster was just not as visually interesting to me. That's my own personal opinion. Your mileage may vary.
Well, with those, the quote-unquote monster was Dr. Frankenstein or Baron Frankenstein, whereas in the Universal movies, they focus on the monster itself. So I totally get it, totally understand. So I'm going to put you on the spot then, because you've mentioned Christopher Lee, you've mentioned Bela Lugosi. Who else could have or should have played a vampire back in the day?
Oh, absolutely. Vincent Price. He could have nailed it. He would have the gentility, the gentleman aspect. I mean, he could pull off the clothes. He could pull off the suave, count, nobleman mannerisms. But then I wouldn't see him as a physical vampire the way Christopher Lee was, where he was really feral. I think he would just be all of a sudden turn on the kind of sinister nature that he actually demonstrated that in, I'm blanking on it, the Roger Corman one with the, it was based on Lovecraft.
Haunted Palace.
Haunted Palace, thank you. You could see him.
Did we watch that?
I've not shown it to you yet, no.
Okay. Oh, you should see that one. I think that's one of the best Lovecraft adaptations. But based on that, you can see how Price could just go from being, very suave and charming to then, now I'm going to, drink your blood and you're going to die. Or worse, I'm going to raise you as a vampire yourself.
Drink your blood or worse. Wait a minute.
There's much worse things you can do than just drink blood. When you start pulling the soul out of somebody and you put it in something else, that's bad juju.
Now you're talking D&D again. The only time I've seen Vincent Price with vampire teeth is an episode of The Muppet Show, so I would love to see that.
I saw that one as well, and again, so did Kermit the Frog.
Yep.
And again, he's another one. Maybe we should see him play Dracula too.
I know there's somebody out there.
I want a Muppet Monster series where, a different human in each one. But then, then you have to decide which character should be the human, because that's the really critical decision.
Should it be Van Helsing as the human?
Get Alice Cooper to come in and play Frankenstein. He could be Helsing.
But see, that's where it's there's lots of actors to choose from, but the critical thing is which role is going to be the only human role in the story, because that's the perspective for the story. If you look at other Muppet movies, and there are sea monsters and things in other ones, so why not? It's that one human kind of has the perspective of the audience there and is holding that together for everyone. So you got to really be careful with your choices there.
All right, well, that's 5 questions and a little bit of a bonus. I hope you enjoyed and felt like you survived.
Oh, I definitely survived, thrived, and, this was a great time. So thank you very much. I always enjoy the classic 5.
Oh, he brought it back. we used to sing it. So that's a soundbite. I wonder if I still have the old files. I'll have to check and see, but I'll do that after the convention because we still have a full day ahead of us. I know Beth and I want to try to hit at least one panel, and then we've got to, unfortunately, break down the Lego and take it home, and you've got to start making your way home.
I do. I have to get into the BadShark mobile and point it east. Unfortunately, I had the time dilation on my way out, so now I've got to go through the time vortex on my way back, but that's okay.
Even later.
That's okay. It's still plenty of daylight between now and then, and that's good for keeping the vampires away.
Good point. Good point.
On the vampires in New Mexico, is that a problem?
No, that's why I like New Mexico.
Okay, just say, not a big thing here, because, Sun.
The problem with New Mexico is, of course, chupacabra.
Oh, well.
But there's a surprising number of trolls because we've got so many limestone caves, like under Virginia. So you get a lot of these old world trolls that came out.
There you go. See, when we go and visit Albuquerque, we'll need to record about the local cryptids for our cryptid series that I want us to do.
Hey, well, we're already talking about doing Saskatchewan, so why not? We'll throw it into that mix. So I'm glad you're not going to be threatened by vampires, but we are going to be threatened by werewolves because this is full moon June. Howl at the moon June. And as soon as the convention is over, Beth and I are going to go home and watch Paul Naschy's film, Frankenstein's Bloody Terror, which she has never seen before. She asked me a little bit about it, and I said, I ain't saying nothing until we sit down to watch it. So we've got that coming up later in this episode. That's coming up. Also, we've got Kenny, he's back with another look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. It's awesome to have Kenny back. And Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review. We're still talking about Ultraman Ace, which is starting to become my second favorite Ultraman series outside of Ultraman 80. I love Ultraman 80. It was my first, so I think it's going to be my favorite forever. But we've got all of that coming up in this episode of Bride of Monster Kid Radio, and that's all going to start right after this.
Coming soon to this theater, a ghastly, ghoulish, and totally incredible motion picture. The werewolf versus the vampire woman. This is Wandesa, queen of the vampires and Satan's favorite mistress. Werewolves and vampires will reign supreme, and things will happen that have never been seen by human beings. Your blood will boil and your flesh will crawl. No one can escape the vampires, and no one can run from the werewolves. If you can take it, see the most sensational fight to the finish ever filmed. See the werewolf versus the vampire woman.
The hanging woman. What strange secret sealed her tragic fate? Who is this fiendish, demented creature that can only love the dead ones? Who is the twisted mind that murders and maims?
You're the only ones I love.
Danger lurks everywhere, every moment. Still warm and glowing, splattered blood stains the cold walls of this macabre tomb. Who is the warped brain that desecrates the coffins?
My uncle is alive. If you don't believe me, why don't you go and look in his tomb? Because it's empty, I tell you.
That's exactly what we intend to do. And you, sir, will have to answer for your conduct.
So on. You can come down now. Nadia.
What mysterious power transforms the corpses to live again, to hunt and to slaughter? The Hanging Woman. A cruel drama of terror and suspense. You will cringe with fear as these shrouded, decaying bodies seek to avenge their death on the innocent ones. A shocking, shivering, shattering experience that you will never, ever forget. The Hanging Woman, an international artist release.
Live from the Land of Light in Nebula M78, home of the mighty Ultra Heroes, it's Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review. Ultraman Ace, Episode 43, Winter Horror Series, Scary Story, Yeti's Cry. Hokuto and the Umezus are back on the ski slopes, where they hear a story about a reclusive mountain man who comes into the village during winter. The mountain man in question, tired of being pursued by groups of skiers, goes through a bizarre summoning ritual, but gets more than he bargained for when he's swallowed by a vortex of snow. Meanwhile, Hokuto investigates eyewitness reports of a giant gorilla man, as well as huge footprints discovered in the snow, which suggests the presence of a Yeti. Although, as one skier points out, Yeti are not native to Japan. Two hunters decide to follow the tracks but are stunned by an encounter with a terrible monster. Hokuto heads out on cross-country skis and makes a disturbing discovery: an entire town of frozen people, which draws the involvement of the entire TAC team. They wage war against terrible monster Fubugirara, and it's personal, since the blizzard monster flash froze Dan and Kayoko Umezu. Ultraman Ace Episode 43 made its broadcast debut on January 26, 1973, and it's the third and final installment of the Winter Horror series. As such, it continues the trend of filming in the snowy mountainous regions of Japan to great effect. The story teases the possible existence of a Yeti, although terrible monster Fubugirara cuts a much different figure, and indeed, abominable snowman reports had been circulating worldwide since the 1950s. Ultraman Ace gets another satisfying final fight in which he unleashes some heretofore unseen powers. But there's a sad note for Episode 43. It's the unceremonious last appearance of Dan and Kayoko Umezu. Dan especially helped carry the series as the so-called sixth Ultra Brother in the wake of Minami's flight to the moon, so it's unfortunate that he and his sister are simply dropped from this point forward. It'll be interesting to see how Ace pivots down the stretch, but the loss of Dan seems like a missed opportunity from a dramatic standpoint. For Monster Kid Radio's Beta Capsule Review, this is Mark Matzke reporting.
Coming soon, this June, it's the Monster Bash Conference at the Pittsburgh Marriott North in Cranberry Township. Fans of classic horror and science fiction films and TV will gather from across the United States and beyond. It's where you can meet and get autographs from movie and TV actors and actresses. This June 20th through the 22nd, 2025, meet Catherine Lee Scott and Sharon Smythe from the original Dark Shadows TV show, plus writer and zombie from the original Night of the Living Dead, John Russo, and the kids and grandkids of the original Universal monsters, Frankenstein, creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, the Wolfman, and the Mummy, Ron Chaney, Lynn Lugosi, Renee Browning. Also appearing, the Monsters movie grandpa Daniel Roebuck, TV horror host Son of Ghoul, an Ohio TV legend, and horror host Mr. Lobo. Renegade monster movie director David The Rock Nelson will be filming on site as well. You'll love shopping over 100 vendor tables featuring movie collectibles, DVDs, Blu-rays, vintage toys, vinyl records, monster magazines, comic books, and more to boggle your eyes. Rare film screenings, special talks, and live game shows where you can win great prizes. It's all part of Monster Bash at the Pittsburgh Marriott North, June 20th through the 22nd, 2025. For discounted advance admission, go to the website monsterbash.us. That's monsterbash.us. Or call 724-238-4317 for more information.
We love the Monster Bash! Woo!
The Fury of the Wolfman, a strange and mysterious story packed with intrigue and horror. What was the terrible secret that haunted Walter Mendeninsky and that threw him into a world of violence and terror? The Fury of the Wolfman. This is the story of a haunted man, a life bewildered by mystery and horror, and nothing could keep Dr. Ellman away from using even grave tombs for her horrible experiments. And destiny pushed Professor Daninsky into the lives of monstrous freaks, the mysterious world of the beautiful Dr. Ilona Ellman. A wild battle in a world full of gruesome violence and horror, a world of the lowest passions. This is the story of a man who changed into a wild beast.
There's something strange. What are you going to do now?
I want you to listen carefully to this, Daninsky.
This is the drama of a normal human being. A professor of psychology who got involved into mystery and crime, who was wanted by the police, who could not help changing into a furious animal. Only love could make an end to his torture. Don't miss The Fury of the Wolfman. Action, violence, horror, filmed with more realism than you can imagine. The Fury of the Wolfman, a Max Spur film production. Starring Paul Naschy, Hera Cristal, Veronica Lujan, and Michael Rivers. Horror if there ever was.
Hello there, Monster Kid Radioheads. This is Kenny with a look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. Today, we are continuing our month of werewolves, and we are going back in time to the beginning. In FM 152 from April of 1979, we find an article by Vincent Simonelli entitled If I Were Wolf. Or is it If I Werewolf? The definitive feature on werewolf films. Today we will look at Part 1, which covers the silent era through the 1940s. Let's get started. The werewolf, a human being who at times changes into a wild animal, is in the mythology of nearly every nation and has been around almost as long as man himself. The werewolf on film hasn't been around quite that long, but its roots do trace back all the way to the silent era. The first werewolf film, made in 1913, was called simply The Werewolf. It and the 1914 film The White Wolf concerned the troubles our American Indians had with first a wolf girl, then a wolf man. These two films were followed in 1923 by the French silent picture Le Loup-garou, The Werewolf, in which a murderer is cursed by a dying priest and becomes a werewolf. Though these films contained humans changing into wolves, they were not werewolves as modern audiences know them. It wasn't until 1935 that Universal Pictures, then the king of horror films, created one of the few classics of the werewolf subgenre. The Werewolf of London, starring Henry Hull, Warner Oland, and Valerie Hobson, was the film which laid down most of the folklore that has now become to be generally accepted about werewolves, but at the same time broke many of the ancient beliefs. The story is that of a floriculturist who, while searching in the Himalayas for a rare flower that blooms only by moonlight, is bitten by a werewolf. When he returns to his home in London, he finds that he has been cursed by werewolfism and seeks to kill the thing he loves best. After many close calls, he is finally shot and killed by police, but lives long enough to thank them for doing it. It was the only way. The Werewolf of London set many precedents. It was the first film to show the werewolf as a half-man, half-beast creature. The first to establish that it is the bite of another werewolf that causes lycanthropy, and the first to show this transformation through a series of cinematic dissolves. It also, however, showed this bloodthirsty creature throwing on a coat and cap before venturing outside, being killed by ordinary lead bullets, and speaking while still in a bestial state. The star, Henry Hull, had great reservations about the extensive makeup needed for the role, and caused makeup artist Jack Pierce to deliver an abbreviated version of what Pierce had originally intended. Universal, obviously displeased with the resultant makeup, saw fit to touch up a photo of Hull for publicity purposes, adding blood, a facial scar, and increasing the amount of hair. This was quite unnecessary, as the makeup, though toned down, was very effective. For all its drawbacks, Werewolf of London remains a very interesting film, and it set the stage for the next sortie on the subject, The Wolfman. The Werewolf of London had feature coverage in FM in issue 24, with a 19-page article that was later reprinted twice. Henry Hall's Werewolf was also featured on FM covers 3 times. Next up is the 1940s Wolfman. Simon Nellie starts with a capsule synopsis of the first film in the series, which ends with these comments. Chaney's sympathetic character, Lawrence Talbot, was a big hit with audiences, and because Chaney allowed Pierce to do the full makeup job, the werewolf is much more wolf-like than in Universal's earlier film. All in all, the film was well made and an improvement over The Werewolf of London. Following that, we have the 4 sequels, the classic Universal monster rallies. Let's see what Simonelli said about Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, which we will be covering this month. The Wolfman, like all successful Universal horror pictures, spawned a series of sequels. The first, released in 1942, was Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, in which Chaney's character, Talbot, is revived as the light of the full moon falls upon his corpse. He then seeks Dr. Frankenstein's book containing secrets of life and death, hoping he can find something in them that will be able to truly kill him. Along the way, he meets the monster of Frankenstein, played by Lugosi, in a role he had turned down 11 years earlier. And in a furious climax, the werewolf and the monster do battle, only to be washed away when a villager blows up a dam, sending tons of water crashing down upon them. All of the sequels, except House of Dracula, had feature coverage at some point in FM's history. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman was featured in FM 42, Monster World 3, and FM 96. House of Frankenstein was given full film book treatment in FM 99, and Wolfman's meeting with Abbott and Costello was featured in FM 105. Next up are the best of the rest, the minor 1940s werewolf films, which are all worth a look. One other werewolf film made by Universal was The She-Wolf of London, 1945. This film told the story of a young girl, played by June Lockhart, who believes she is a she-wolf. It is later discovered that she is being framed and deluded by an all-too-human killer. But other film companies were not just sitting idle during the 1940s, while Universal broke ground and made their howling successes. 1942 in France brought us Le Loup des Malvenus, in which the descendant of a cursed noble becomes a wolf. The same year saw The Undying Monster from 20th Century Fox, which had John Howard as a man destined to become a werewolf because of an ancient curse on his family. The creature is only seen for a few brief instances near the end. When Bela Lugosi came back as Armand Tesla, a copy of Dracula, in Return of the Vampire, Matt Willis played his assistant, a talking werewolf. Willis, basically a good sort and being used by Tesla, destroyed Lugosi shortly before being shot and killed himself. Columbia Pictures entries for 40s werewolves were Cry of the Werewolf, starring Nina Foch as a female lycanthrope, and Idle Rumors, in which the Three Stooges were menaced by a werewolf. Both films were released in 1944. The Undying Monster was covered in FM 146, and Return of the Vampire was first seen in Monster World 6 and was reprinted in FM 45 and FM 58. That is all for this week's look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. We will have more next time. For MKR, this is Kenny saying adios.
From the dark and mysterious Middle Ages, full of mystery and violence, there now comes to the screen, fear rises from the tomb, a curse which would bring these people to the most terrifying situations. Fear rises from the tomb. With Emma Cohen, Paul Naschy, Vic Winner, Cristina Suriani, Betsabe Ruiz, and Helga Linné in the role of...
Maria.
Fear rises from the tomb, with all the mystery and terror of medieval rites and witchcraft. The infernal powers of evil persecuting these defenseless beings. Only the talisman could free them from the spellbinding influence. Fear rises from the tomb. A terrifying experience. It will take you a long time to forget.
No! 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 Ah!
Fear rises from the tomb. A Pro Films production. Directed by Carlos Aurel.
7 moons have passed. Today we shall take them. I want, when the supreme day comes, that they are sufficiently prepared for the sacrifice.
This is Count Vlad, but you may recognize me by my more familiar name, Count Dracula, and I'm here to offer you a friendly warning. Derek and his guests often get excited, and occasionally this results in revealing key plot points of the movies they're discussing. In your parlance, you might call these revelations spoilers. You know how the children of the night, monster kids can get sometimes. So consider yourself warned, and don't come begging to me to kill them for their transgressions afterward. I have more pressing issues to take care of, like that pesky Van Helsing.
We just finished watching a movie with Frankenstein in it, right?
Well, it's in the title.
So speaking of titles, this movie has had a number of different titles, including...
Which happens.
The Mark of the Wolfman, Hell's Creatures, The Knights of Satan, The Vampires of Dr. Dracula, and Frankenstein's Bloody Terror. So the Frankenstein's Bloody Terror bit is because the distributor promised various theaters, yeah, we got another Frankenstein movie, because they were doing Dracula versus Frankenstein, and they were doing Devil Feature or whatever. So they created this bit at the very beginning about how Frankenstein...
This is so stupid. Like, the movie's not, but this bit is dumb.
Wolfstein.
They've turned into the Wolfstein family. Which, admittedly sounds like something the Nazis would have done during World War II. They would, take the Frankenstein monster and create a Wolfstein. It's like some SS nonsense going on down in their little secret magic Satan castle or whatever it was. Actually, any of the titles other than the last one would have been a better title. The Mark of the Wolf would have been a great title.
Well, I think that's actually what the original Spanish title translates to, but I'm not an expert when it comes to Paul Naschy.
Because there was a mark. There were wolves. The mark was of the wolf. That would have been great.
Yeah, for sure.
But I get it. Politics and corporate greed. Go ahead.
Whatever. So Paul Naschy has been described as the Spanish Lon Chaney because he's played the Wolfman, Frankenstein's monster, Count Dracula, a mummy, Quasimodo, and even Fu Manchu.
That last one's an interesting choice, but I can kind of see it, I guess.
So Paul Naschy did a ton of these movies, and the story goes that he wanted to do a werewolf movie because he was inspired by the first werewolf movie that he saw, which was Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, which we're going to be talking about later this month.
Yeah.
He saw that movie, and it really stuck that Wolfman seed in him. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean, and I get it. It's like you see the first of a monster. The first time I saw the creature, all I wanted to do was see 2 and 3.
Yeah. And there's even some stories that say that he tried to get Lon Chaney Jr. to play.
Oh, that's cute.
This monster, and that he wasn't going to play him, even though he co-wrote it and co-created the whole thing.
Well, because it's kind of a lot of work to be in a show that you're also directing.
Well, he didn't direct this. He just wrote it.
Okay, but if he wrote it, he's got to be there and be watching the script the whole time.
Sure.
Okay, fine. He's not directing it, but he's there in a capacity other than just an actor.
He has more of a vested interest in it than, say, somebody who's there for work for hire. Totally understand.
Yeah.
And speaking of different titles and different names, Paul Naschy was not his given name.
Okay, I wondered because Naschy.
Well, Naschy is actually inspired by or derived from the name of a Olympic athlete, a Spanish Olympic athlete. Paul came from the Pope.
We've had a few Pauls. Yeah.
Yeah. So he took his name from the Pope and made a whole bunch of horror movies.
from the Pope's title, I assume it was a Pope Paul at the time.
Yeah. His real name was Jacinto Molina Alvarez, or Jacinto Molina, which is the name that he would use later when he started directing some of these movies.
Oh, come on. There got to be at least 6 more middle names in there.
Potentially. Who knows?
That's kind of the great thing about, that culture is you do have multiple names. So if you need to choose a different one in order to have a pen name or a screen name or something, you totally can.
Now, this is the first of 12 werewolf movies featuring Vladimir Daninsky.
This character.
Kind of. Now, he also did 4 other movies in which he appeared as a werewolf.
Okay.
And even once was called Waldemar.
Oh.
But they're not connected, although these aren't really connected either. These are about almost as connected as, say, like the Santo movies are.
Okay, well.
There's no, like, real continuity.
It's serial.
Yeah, so that's there. And I really love his Mummy movie. I really like his Mummy movie. And one of my favorite Paul Naschy films is Horror Rises from the Tomb, in which he plays an evil warlock back from the dead. It's so cool. I really like that one. But this is the first of the werewolf movies for him. And I've only seen the movie twice before. Once when I first started exploring Paul Naschy movies, and I didn't get it, and I didn't like it.
Okay.
And then I watched it again because I thought many, many moons ago, and it might even still exist on the YouTube channel somewhere, I was going to do a series of YouTube videos in which I watched Paul Naschy movies, and just, I did a promo, and that's about as far as I got. Because it's a little overwhelming when you're looking at somebody's entire horror filmography.
Yes.
And the Naschy cast was around, and I'd just be kind of, and it still is, but I'd still be treading territory that was already covered by Rod and Troy, and, whatever.
Which isn't forbidden.
No, not at all.
But, you know what it really was? The universe just had you waiting for me, baby.
Oh, so you want to do a bunch of Paul Naschy movies now?
I could do at least another one. They're interesting.
Well, the next one in this particular series may or may not even exist. It's considered a lost film.
Okay.
Paul Naschy himself went on record as saying that he didn't even realize this movie never got released or never.
Oh, no.
The story goes that he says he shot it. Nobody else says they shot it. If they did shoot it, it got stuck in a lab somewhere and not paid for. So the lab was just like, oh, what's this film? Get rid of it. And chucked it.
No.
So the second film doesn't exist.
Okay.
But there is a third film that maybe we'll check out at some point.
Unless if any of you have a copy of that second film and from an attic, grandpa's attic, or grandma had that secret love affair with Paul Naschy way back when, and she's got a copy and you want to get it to us, we'd be happy to do the world premiere review.
Oh, that'd be awesome. So that one's called The Knights of the Wolfman. The third one, which I have seen and I really love.
Wait. So they used the title that they didn't use from this one?
Potentially.
Okay,
sure.
That's great.
The third one is called The Monsters of Terror, also known as Dracula versus Frankenstein.
Okay.
In which he appears as a wolfman, but there's also a Dracula, a mummy, And it stars, of all people, Michael Rennie, who was an American actor who is Klaatu in The Day the Earth Stood Still. And it's his last film. And it's also called Assignment Terror, and I really like it. Anyway, I don't want to go through Paul Naschy.
No. But I think I see what you mean when you warned me before we got into this about the unusualness of his work.
Yes.
And I'm going to say, at first you were like, I don't like it. Well, I do like it, but I didn't like it. But it's weird or it's different. I think this is another one where you need to look at it with your open-minded eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be like when we reviewed Temple of Doom.
Sure.
Or Barbie.
Yeah.
Or any number of things.
Wow, we just put Paul Naschy, the Barbie movie, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
All equally weird. Tell me they're not.
You're right. And
all equally unique.
With Paul Naschy in particular, you kind of have to be ready for it, I feel like.
Yeah.
And there are some movies out there that I really did not get, and that translated to really disliking the first time I saw it. Phantasm. I love Phantasm. I love the entire series. But the first time I saw Phantasm, I just was bored and was over it. And I don't understand why everybody loves this. I didn't, whatever. But
well, it's a very common human reaction that when we don't understand something, we're often put off by it.
Right.
And it's more that in our head, unconsciously, we're going, stupid thing, I can't understand, or go like a stupid thing. Like that, I don't know if you guys could hear that on the tape. I was saying stupid thing. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I get that, but with time and exposure can come maturity. Not always, but in this case. And I think you had a little different reaction to it today.
I did, because I didn't remember a lot of it.
Okay.
I remember Paul Naschy's writhing around trying to not turn into a wolfman or a werewolf.
He does do a good job of writhing.
Oh, he's fantastic.
He's an excellent writher.
But I had forgotten there were vampires in it. Excellent writer. Okay. I had forgotten there were vampires in it. In fact, when they first showed up and the fog clears,
yeah.
I'm like, what is this?
You literally said, wait, who's this? I was like, haven't you seen this before?
It's been so long. It's got to be at least a decade, I think, since I've seen this.
Okay, that's fair, I guess. But, for all that they do just show up, they lean into the vampire tropes.
Oh.
I think it's nice how much, he goes ahead and leans into some of the tropes of the different monsters here.
There's no subtlety.
No, we don't need to be subtle.
Tall, skinny, gaunt-looking dude, pale skin, red-lined cape.
And literally, this guy might be taller and skinnier than Doug Jones, people, which is impressive.
Yeah, he's a tall, skinny, lanky dude. And another connection to Phantasm, I suppose, because of the tall man in that. But yeah, this was just, I couldn't remember so much of it.
And then just like you and I, they paired him with a short gal, so.
Right. And I'm thinking, Rudolph, that was his name, right? Rudolph, Janice, why are you letting them get involved here? Their entrance is not happy-go-lucky, and the scene ends with, and by the way, we have to sleep during the day. Okay. All right, so we're watching the movie. The movie starts. You're asking about when it was set. My assumption is that it was a contemporary for the time film.
Okay.
When we started watching it,
so the 60s.
60s, yeah, 1960s.
For those who don't know.
And you had asked me earlier while we were watching it, where is this set? And I said, I guess Spain, but no. Because Spanish censorship laws were very strict.
Okay.
So there was...
Well, this is the Franco era, right?
68, so yeah.
Yeah.
Very strict rules about what they could and could not put on screen. So they never quite said, this is Spain. So they tried to walk that line a little bit.
So you were looking this up. Is that pretty common for the era that they would...
I knew that was common for...
Not specifically say that they were in Spain so that things that were said couldn't be taken wrong and land you in jail.
I know that when it came to the production of certain movies, a lot of Spanish filmmakers would team up with Italian filmmakers, and suddenly you ended up with a Spanish-Italian co-production of a spaghetti western or a Euro horror that they would shoot and produce and release elsewhere, even though it employed a bunch of Spanish people. And I learned that from my time with Dorado Films. So it's an interesting period of time, I feel like. And in Italy had the same issue. There were some times in Italy when the regime was very not friendly to certain types of subject matter being portrayed on film.
Sure.
Which is where I feel like you get some of the most interesting stuff because you've got to code it and be subversive about it. And it gets really interesting. There's nothing coded in this. This is not subtle. This is a monster movie.
But in a way, I think maybe being a monster movie, being something that's seen as more for young people, maybe they could get away with that directness more because there's this assumption that, it's just for kids or it's just for young people. It's not, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I had also forgotten about all the old Dark House. I mean, that's not really old Dark House, but Spooky Castle stuff.
Lots
of Spooky Castle stuff. Man, it was really kind of refreshing to watch this. I feel like, I really enjoyed it. It was kind of a romp. It did technically have the big three monsters in it, kind of. In a Wolfman, we had a Dracula or two, and we had Frankenstein in the opening credits, where we got told repeatedly they changed her name to Wolfstein.
Wolfstein.
Man, I do wonder how this would play as a double feature with Dracula versus Frankenstein, which is one of my favorites. With Lon Chaney Jr. is in that one.
I kind of wonder how I'd play to a German audience. I think they would just crack up laughing at what's been done to it.
So there are a couple things in here that I wanted to comment on.
Okay.
First of all, it was almost like watching a brand new movie for me. So I was surprised that Paul Naschy didn't start as a Wolfman, because they really kind of introduced him as somebody that may be interrupting budding romance between Rudolph and Janice.
Yes.
And even during his introduction, who are you? Don't you know me? I'm Satan, and we're dancing at the ball, So I kind of expected this. He was already a werewolf.
Yeah.
Man, I really forgot so much of this because he's not. No. He and Rudolph end up striking up a friendship because they go looking for the other werewolf together. Mm-hmm. And he kind of saves him from being bitten, even though he takes the bite himself. And then we got the scar on him. And I really liked that. I had forgotten so much of this with Rudolph and Janice ending up just basically being friends, I guess. Maybe Rudolph still has a little bit of a flame for her, but, he wants her to...
I liked that, okay. Like, I was surprisingly, good with that I was like, wow, for this era movie... to be like, hey, they can just be friends. I was kind of impressed.
It was, even though he was kind of a jerk to her, to begin with. He seemed kind of rude to Daninsky first.
I just wrote that down to jealousy.
Jealousy, yeah, exactly. And we are getting some interesting mirroring of Chaney's Wolfman in this, in that Paul Naschy, Daninsky and Janice are walking in the woods together, and he's putting the moves on her, even though it's kind of obvious that she and Rudolph might have a thing, so maybe you deserve what you get. I don't know, maybe not. But there's that. It's not as gory as I remember. I mean, there's some Technicolor blood.
Sure.
But it's not nearly as bloody as I remember. I know Wednesday was watching the movie with wide eyes at some point.
Oh, yeah, she was really enjoying this one.
You might have just heard her in the background. I don't know if the filtering that I'm going to do is going to take her out, but trust me, she just meowed. But something that really caught my attention this time was the music.
Oh, okay. It immediately clicked with me that the guy doing the music knew what he was doing. He had a good feel for it. And the timing with where he set certain pieces was really, really nicely done.
Some of that, too, for me, felt like George Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Ooh, okay.
Now, Dawn of the Dead's score is primarily library music, stock music. Mm-hmm. And I felt like a lot of this had that feel that we'd have spooky, okay, here's some down-tempo stuff, here's some up-tempo stuff, and then suddenly, boom, jump cut as we look at a picture on the wall for some reason. And it felt very Dawn of the Dead to me, and it makes me wonder, especially since Dawn of the Dead was partially financed by Dario Argento, who's an Italian filmmaker, if that was intentional, or if that influence was where that came from. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and I don't think you've seen any Argento films.
No.
I don't know, I found that interesting.
To look forward to.
Argento's weird, man. Argento's weird.
Like this kind of weird, or like Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of weird.
No, I wouldn't go that far either. But Argento, for a while, had this weird obsession of having his actress daughter, Asia Argento, who was engaged to Anthony Bourdain when he passed. He had this weird obsession of putting Asia Argento in all of his movies and making her topless. Maybe not in all, but it was just really weird.
Wait, is his daughter his stepdaughter?
Daughter. But it's also Italy.
I don't care. It's your kid.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I wouldn't put a son of mine topless in something, so...
No, it's good, I guess.
I would find that weird.
Yeah, we're going down a weird path here. Let's get back to this one.
Anyway.
One of my favorite parts of watching this movie with you this time was when Rudolph and Janice are driving away from the castle.
Okay.
And they run the wagon off the road, and they're travelers. They're, what did you say, Roma, travelers, Irish travelers sometimes called, or we don't need to go to... You all get it. We're not going to use the one word because that's not an appropriate word anymore. It wasn't an appropriate word then, but we all didn't know better. So now we know better. We're going to do better. But they have their very traditional wagon that has the curved over top and, great. I kind of want to hold it out of Lego. All of the accents and everything. It's kind of, if you get that, like a covered wagon from the Great Plains, except for instead of a tarp, it's actually wood over the top and very beautifully decorated, very ornate. It's their home, and travelers take great pride in their homes, and I thought that was well represented. Yes, I thought that was well represented, and great pride in themselves and taking care of themselves, and that was nicely represented. There were a number of things in this movie that I felt were way ahead of their time. In the appropriateness of way things that I want to die, but I want to comment on my favorite part of watching this movie with you, because we're commenting on the actor and actress who are playing the travelers. Yes. And we both pointed out to each other quite quickly that she doesn't seem to be really a traveler. She's one of these people? Really? And you were looking at me and I couldn't tell if you're being sarcastic or not. So I asked you to elaborate, and you just started going blonde, 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 blonde. It was, and I'm not saying that people of a traveler heritage can't be blonde, but she was so blonde. She was like Nordic ski jacket ad blonde. Yeah. And very white woman. Oh, very just like you expected her to go to Starbucks and start gentrifying the neighborhood. She looked like she could have been a classmate of Janice's at that Swiss school they sent her to, that they referenced that she was. I mean, Janice is a very appropriate name for her. She looked just like the Muppet character. Oh, boy. All right, you said there were some things that were ahead of the time. What stood out? Well, okay, the respect with which the film treated the travelers, that was one, not just in the way that the other characters treated them,
but in the way they were portrayed as their possessions not being dirty or damaged or run down, which would have been very on brand for the time.
Yeah.
But they were shown as being proud of themselves and their things. I feel like women in the movie are accorded a measure of respect that is often missing in things from that era. There isn't like an assumption that they're stupid or...
I mean, Rudolph does treat Janice kind of weirdly. Like, doing everything short of saying, stupid woman, you don't know what you're talking about. But I don't feel like that was because she was a woman. I think it was just the fathers are trying to get them to hook up and become a couple, and it's clearly not going to work. There's no that kind of affection there.
Sure.
You know, and speaking of the travelers, yeah, they are kind of presented in a not negative light, which, again, there's a mirroring to the original Wolfman because you've got Ospeskaya in that, and what happened with Bela being the one to turn Talbot. They do also end up being the ones responsible for releasing the werewolf curse or the sleep. They should have let sleeping werewolves lie.
Well, yes, yeah. I see what you did there.
But you know, they do get drunk and start throwing things around and all that and robbing a grave. But, you know, somebody's got to do that in a horror movie, I guess.
And to be fair, they're young people. So you could treat that just as young people being young people.
Yeah. I didn't feel like it was, these greedy people.
No.
I felt more of a, you know, we're in a cat. I'd snoop around.
Yeah,
I would snoop around in a hot minute. And one thing that I saw about Paul Naschy is that for a later film, and it might have been Panic Beats, which I've not seen, but it's supposedly a sequel to Horror Rises from the Tomb.
Okay.
They did shoot that in a castle, and Naschy, between takes, would explore to rummage around.
I absolutely would.
I
would have done like Secret Staircase. Yes, please.
I'm in, man. I want to snoop around. I want to see what's up. So, anyway, so the women aren't treated necessarily super poorly. Okay. Was there anything else?
I'm trying to remember anything specific. It just felt like there were little things throughout where it gave the movie a feeling that this sounds like a weird thing to say, but it's sort of timeless in a way because it wasn't super offensive in scene after scene after scene after scene. I think it becomes easier for it to become a classic as time goes on because not every other scene going, ooh, that didn't age well.
That's a good point.
You know?
You're absolutely right. And we later on in the Paul Naschy filmography, where he is the one writing the pieces, knowing at this point that he will end up being the lead, it does start to get a little uncomfortable because he gets to be a much older gentleman and he's writing love scenes with much younger women for himself. And, you know, it starts to get a little like, the ick factor starts to creep in a little bit, but I didn't feel that here.
No, I didn't feel that here. And, you know, again, for the era, I mean, look at how many movies of that era with, say, Hepburn, where it's some old man going after her who's 20, 30 years older than her, you know, and we're just supposed to be okay with it. So, yeah, no, I kind of thought this was nice.
You also made a comment that kind of stood out to me, and it made me really sad. How much am I missing from classic horror films because of my colorblindness?
Well,
I could see some.
In some cases, they're black and white, so it's not an issue.
Well, with the black and white, maybe that's why I love black and white movies so much.
So this had a really neat quality, both in every time there was a scene where you were like looking out a window, so you could see the sky outside, both day and night, or if you were looking at drapes, or they clearly had fabric on the walls of some of the rooms, possibly like a velvet or something. But the use of lighting and the play on color, it's kind of how I imagine the Munsters would have been if it was originally filmed in color.
Okay.
Now, those of us who are Munsters fans know that the set was in color.
Right.
When they were filming in black and white in order to get the differentiation of the different grays and stuff. But you had pinks and greens and all of these things. And you have a lot of that here with the greens and blues and then kind of deep burgundies and very, very dark pinks and things. And it just gave it such a fun, spooky quality. And it made the light play off of the actors' faces in a really cool way. I do feel bad for you if you're missing some of that because it does just add a little something extra to the mix. Maybe we need to get you some color blindness glasses. I've been looking at them. I think it is time. No, sorry. I love Rafiki. Go ahead.
I don't know. I could see like the deep blue of the dude's jacket. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of shots that are like long panning shots. You can see there's the red fill light here, the green fill light there, which made me think of Mario Bava and made me think we need to show some Mario Bava movies to you. Planet of the Vampires, I think, might be a fun one for you.
Ooh, they get their whole one planet. Not sure if that'll work without other humans on it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, anyway. But yeah, Bava's got some great stuff with colors. Hercules and the Haunted World might be a good one too. And that's got Christopher Lee. But anyway, yeah, I just wonder how much I might have been missing. Also, I don't think this is the best transfer. So some of the color issues that you commented on in the beginning, is Janice a redhead or is she a blonde? You know, kind of hard to tell.
It does happen where you can see they've adjusted, from certain angles, they've adjusted the lighting on the film, I think, right? The filter on it or something. And so she's like, within about 10 seconds, she's a blonde, she's a redhead, she's a blonde, she's a redhead. Is that orange? No, it's red. No, it's blonde. No, it's orange.
Well, and, you know, older
And as a redhead,
yeah,
I notice those sorts of things.
Older film does lose its color. I've seen transfers of the John Agar classic, Mr. No Legs, where everybody is pink, like really bright pink, because the transfer of the film
it got washed with a red T-shirt.
It just looks awful. It's terrible. So, you know, you got to go in and do some real work to save this stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much was done for this transfer. However, this film was supposedly released in 3D.
What? What? Why?
Because why not? And my understanding is that it was a double. I don't remember the exact term, but two film cameras were being run, two 35 millimeter films, one for the left eye, one for the right, and they were going to be superimposed. And supposedly that made it look really, really good. In fact, you know how we were watching the beginning and said in scope or whatever, 70 millimeter. That's why it was 35.
Oh, duh.
So I don't know if that's really where it came from or not, but
it could be.
It could very well could be, and it could have just been a gimmick that they threw in there to try to make the film seem more prestige than it was. Supposedly, it got released in maybe German markets or a European market in 3D to begin with, but then when it came over here in the U.S. for a 3D release,
it makes sense. They love their 3D over there.
The wrong lenses were used on the projectors, which made it look terrible. Now, supposedly, and I don't know if this has already happened because I've been kind of out of the loop on new movie releases to DVD and Blu-ray because
right.
I don't want to tempt myself, and we can't afford to buy a bunch of movies right now.
Well, and to be fair, several of our viewers have sent us things that we still need to review, and so I'm not going to pay for more stuff when I still have perfectly good movies that were lovingly selected for us from our viewers.
On top of that, we don't have a 3D Blu-ray player or a 3D television, but supposedly Kino Lorber, which I always have a hard time saying unless I stop and think about it, Kino Lorber released it on Blu-ray in 3D.
Oh.
I'd love to see it in 3D just to see what it looks like.
Okay, cool.
I don't know how impressive it would be. There's not a lot of the gimmicky 3D shots where something's coming towards the camera.
That's why I was saying why, because it just doesn't seem like the kind of movie you would bother to do that with.
I wonder if perhaps some of the shots of the castle with the corridors going deep into the background would look more interesting.
Maybe.
Well, I guess there's the one shot of the vampire with the red cloak whipping it around like he's trying to fool Penn and Teller. And then he walks towards the camera and the cape goes over the lens.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's the 3D shot. How do you think this did as a werewolf movie? There's a lot of...
It's a werewolf movie. It absolutely is.
There's a lot. They packed a lot in.
Okay, it follows the traditional rules.
Yep.
I mean, moon up, wolf out, and it follows the behind the cloud.
Oh, yeah, to get that shot.
Type rules.
The clouds part and then full moon, and yeah.
But to me, this is important when it goes away as when it shows up.
Yeah.
It being the werewolfiness,
Yeah.
It is clearly a transmitted disease.
Yep.
Most monsterhoods are not a transmitted disease. They're just part of who you are, or they're part of who you have become. In the case of, many, many monsters.
Sure.
But this is a disease. This is like having smallpox or whatever.
Yeah.
And it just has different outcomes. And you do have to be careful. Like, he doesn't want to pass it on, and
mm-hmm.
So I think it's pretty good. Oh, also the howling. Excellent howling. I really enjoyed the howling. Nicely done, nicely placed, not overdone. I would give it 4 out of 5 wet noses for werewolfiness.
I think so too. I would have liked to have seen more transformation scenes, like the transitions. I know it's kind of hard to do on a budget, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. I do like that it becomes a monster rally kind of almost at the end, where you've got 2 werewolves fighting each other, and then they've got to go fight the Draculas or the vampires. I also liked the attention to detail where when the vampire lady is trying to resurrect the original werewolf in the movie, who's been stuck back in his crypt with a silver cross dagger in his heart. She's wrapping it up with a scarf to pull out because some lore is that vampires can't touch silver. And I thought that was a nice...
So yeah, what about that one up? That she's got to pull her scarf off and do it because she can't touch that knife if it's silver.
Really nice.
It's got to be silver in order to do what it needs to do. So
really nice.
Yeah, you could tell they're really paying attention.
Really nice touches. I think there's a lot to like here, and I don't know why. I do know why. I've avoided a lot of Paul Naschy on the film because, like I said, I feel like it was better discussed by other people on other podcasts. But I'm really glad that we got into this. I think I've only talked about one other Paul Naschy movie on a podcast.
Okay.
And that was back on my Mail Order Zombie podcast, The Hanging Woman, in which he does appear. And I couldn't even tell you what he does in it because I don't remember. It was that long ago.
Was there a woman? Was she hanging?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hey, then it's better and more true to title than this one.
Good point. So, listeners, if you've seen any other cut of this movie, now Frankenstein's a Bloody Terror is missing some footage. They did shorten it up a little bit for American audiences. But I did want to start with this one when it comes to Paul Naschy and Beth. Because it is, it's designed for Americans, and I wanted to kind of dive into it that way. But if you've seen Mark of the Werewolf, which I've never seen, the Spanish cut, would you recommend? Let me know. Email me, monsterkidradio@gmail.com. Let me know what you think about this one. Let me know what you think about Paul Naschy werewolf movies. Should I talk about more Paul Naschy here on the show? Should I eventually get Rod Barnett to come on the show to talk about Paul Naschy movies? I know it's something that I've talked about doing for years and never did, even back in the zombie days, because Naschy did a zombie movie or two. I don't know. Just let me know what you think about Paul Naschy overall and this movie, and we'll go from there. I want to thank Beth for doing this because this is the Monday after the con. This episode is a day late, and I don't know if you can tell, but she's running a little rough.
I'm a little tired, guys. I had a very busy 2 weeks leading up to the con, finishing our Lego build. I had many 2 a.m., 3 a.m. nights.
And dealing with looking for, a new teaching job. Going through the job search process.
Yes, which I'm happy to announce. I think I've found something.
Yeah.
That's going to work for me. It's going to work for them. And I think it's going to be a really good place. But yeah, I had a lot of late nights leading up to the build. 2 days before before the con, I found out that I had to have my build picked up an entire day earlier than
about a day and a half earlier than we planned.
Which was also 4 hours from the time I found out.
Yep.
So that was unexpected and crazy.
And we've been dealing with my car situation.
And we've been dealing with car situations. And then the con itself, getting up very early, staying very late, all those sorts of things. And just all the walking around. But we had an amazing time, guys. I really got to meet some great and amazing people. We got to hang out with BadShark Blackhand.
BadShark. Yes.
Which was so much fun. Cannot wait to hang out and see him again. Thank you so much for coming out and meeting up with us. And, it was a lot. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot. So I appreciate you guys and your patience letting us take that one extra day. I wasn't originally scheduled to be on the podcast this week, but we had to do some rearranging in order to help a friend out. So
things happen, man.
Things happen, and we roll with the punches, and
so
dog days of summer and all that. So
I'm gonna let Beth give her incredibly sexy smoker voice that she's to Derek now. I'm gonna let her give that a rest while I wrap up the show by letting you know you can find out everything you need to know about Monster Kid Radio, Bride of Monster Kid Radio, Team Death, everything else that we have to do at the various links over at monsterkidradio.net, where you're going to find links to everything we've talked about here on the show, including our Amazon affiliate link. If you want to shop on Amazon, please use this link because it takes a penny or two out of Jeff Bezos' pocket and puts it into the Monster Kid Radio coffers. Every little bit helps. You can also find our contact information, monsterkidradio@gmail.com, and our voicemail line, which is 360-524-2484. You can also find links to pretty much every social media outlet that we have out there. In case you want to just look for us, you can find us on Facebook. You can have a group or a page over there. We're on X. We're on Blue Sky. And we're even on Reddit. And Discord. Or you can follow us over at Patreon at patreon.com/monsterkidradio, where you can follow us as a free patron, as a free member.
In fact, the only place we don't want you to follow us is on the street. That would be weird.
Yeah, that would be weird. Definitely weird. Anyway, follow us over there on patreon.com/monsterkidradio. Every time we announce something new on the show, I'm going to start putting it there too. I know I've been threatening to make that our primary outlet. It will eventually become the primary outlet because, I have a lot more control over there about what you see as a patron of Monster Kid Radio over there. Also, when I put the show notes over there for these episodes, that's usually where I announce what's coming up next first. So if you want to know what's coming up next on the next episode of the podcast, follow us. Yep. Go over to patreon.com/monsterkidradio. Big thanks to Kenny for another look at Famous Monsters of Filmland. It's super cool to have him back in the mix. And for Mark Matzke's Beta Capsule review. I appreciate all of that as well. We aren't playing any special surf music here on the show from another band. We are just playing what I affectionately call the Monster Kid Radio theme, which is this surf version of In the Hall of the Mountain King, which we're going to go out on here in a moment. Bride of Monster Kid Radio is a Team Death production. All original content of Bride of Monster Kid Radio is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 Unported license. You can learn more about Team Death, our other projects like Death Designs, Mail Order Zombie, the Team Death YouTube channel, and more at www.teamdeath.com. Remember, death is spelled D-E-T-H. All previous episodes of this podcast, as well as the original Monster Kid Radio podcast, are available at www.monsterkidradio.net. Please rate and review Bride of Monster Kid Radio wherever you download your favorite podcasts. My name is Derek M. Cook. We will talk to everybody next week when we continue to howl at the moon this June. Well, that's going to kill your voice. Ciao.